and endurance is nearly a must include. And I may think about the answer why.
I think it's kind of the mirror breaker because it draws so many cards, really.
You pitch cast it, let it die first, and so you can draw your deck 4 times, or 5 or 6.
Welcome to In Response, a Legacy podcast. Whether you're a dedicated player or just curious about Legacy, join us as we share ideas, discuss decks, and have some fun along the way.
So guys, a new deck basically emerged from its own grave. It's digging its way up, and we have BUG Beanstalk back on the menu. Control is here to stay, hopefully in the format again. So we're going into detail with BUG Beanstalk to talk about the general cards the deck plays, what its strengths and weaknesses are, and how you should play the deck. So, Daniel, this is basically your new baby. You were born in BUG colors, shaped with a little bit of red for Past in Flames back in the day.
True.
But yeah, so
More or less, actually, yes. Yeah, but a completely different strategy. Yeah, BUG Beans is back. I played it last week in our local game store, and it's super great. It's one fair deck that is super nice and customizable, and yeah, it's a new hotness for sure, because not only because of the bannings and you know the big like trade how do you say it
change in the meta.
the big enemies like the whatever in Reanimator and Razi are gone. Now it's also the time to explore the new card, which is Rakshasa's Bargain. It's one reason why people play the deck again. And it's not flavor, I would say. It's still, it already shows that this deck proves itself, and the card that you can play now in this deck proves itself to be actually really good. And this is the reason why BUG is kind of back on the menu. And yeah, I piloted it. I think it's great, and you can customize it the way you want. And therefore, there's some nuances to that. But maybe first we can go over the cards that you usually play.
Yeah. So let's start with a few boring cards in the deck.
I mean, it plays lands. That's not so usual today.
It's not Ursal Space.
Yeah.
So it's not a good deck, do you say?
So yeah, let's start with the mana base. It's a traditional BUG mana base. We talked about it. We are playing like 2-3 Wastelands in the deck. We have 2 Lauren revealed to support the mana base as well.
Yeah.
Do you play any Mystic Sanctuaries in this deck?
Yeah, usually if you want to be greedy. Yeah, usually yes, I would say.
As a one-off.
As a one-off, yeah. Well, greedy is of course more or less a joke, but yeah, of course it has a cost if you play that, and it affects, I would say, the consistency of your mana base for sure. It's not free, but usually you play this deck because you wanna grind, and this is one card.
Do you see a new Mistrise Village, maybe instead of Mystic Sanctuary in BUG Beanstalk?
Not yet.
But can you see it?
I personally, I think I'm higher on Mystic Sanctuary, because we can talk about the weakness and so on later, but I think Mystic Sanctuary is at the kind of the mid game. The card that, buys back a Thoughtseize, buys back a Force, and it's also very good against combo. Like, Mistrise doesn't help you against combo. You already, you play individually good cards. You just want to create value. You don't want to push and punch through a single spell, not necessarily. So you're not really relying on that. You just want to have value in the sense of good cards. So I think it's more fitting in combo decks that want to, resolve a show and tell, for example.
Yeah, I just thought maybe resolving
Bargain.
Beanstalk or bargain
Yeah.
seems really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see the application would be more to ensure your force of will goes through than to have your value pieces go through. Because this would be against combo, specifically the spell you want to protect.
The issue is that
Force of will.
the Mistrise would, it costs 2 extra mana. It's super mana hungry. If we're in an already mana hungry deck, and the mana base is an issue, so I think it's more like it would be more, let's say, how do you say that? A win more, I would say.
Okay.
That's how I view it.
Yeah, especially in BUG when mana is already quite a constraint.
Yeah.
But to ensure your mana base a little bit, we are a blue deck. We have 8 boring cards that everybody has to play. We have the Cantrip Suit, the Cantrip Cartel in Ponder and Brainstorm. Basically nothing to add, am I right?
Maybe too pre, no?
No, we're going into combo. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Warrior card, everybody has it.
It's simply right, yeah.
So we're going to the value section of cards in the deck. Let's start with the cards that gave the deck its name back in the days of 2021. Am I right? We have 2023.
Really?
I was stuck in time.
Yeah.
We have Beanstalk Enchantment for 2. ETB draws a card, and whenever you play a spell with mana value 4 or more, 5, you draw a card.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of the main engine.
It's perfect for Force of Will, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, this is a known engine, of course, and besides Force of Will, there's multiple other cards that support this. You opt in for cards like Murderer's Card, Murktide Regent, and so on to enable this card, and also bargain this new like instant stock up, if you want to call it. Works very nicely with Beanstalk because it always on the stack and everywhere else it has the combined mana value of 6 because it's hybrid, colorless, and so on. But you can actually cast it for free with back colors. There it triggers Beanstalk as well, which is a super nice bonus and one kind of the reason why you want to have this combined in the deck.
Yeah, as you already said, like bargain, or to specify it, Rakshasas. Bargain is the new card that brought back the resurgence for the deck. In addition to getting Microspawn banned,
Free from the Microspawn, yeah.
and Control doesn't really have to divine a little bit of its game plan because like duality, combo deck, tempo deck on top of the meta is gone.
Would you play a stock up in BUG Beanstalk if bargain wouldn't have ever been printed?
Yeah, I think it would now be a possibility, for sure. Because I think there would still be the kind of the new spot in the meta game where you can try just regular beans. And we can talk about this because beans is very highly customizable and bargain itself also. I mean, if the format is still rather fast, if we have like say only oops, stompy, whatever, there's still the possibility. You don't want to have too many copies of bargain actually. Also BUG Beans players like to board out a copy of Beanstalk itself against faster decks. It's not a must-have to have it in as a 4-off. In that sense, if you're playing one bargain or not, it's then pretty close to none. And then you could try, of course, stock up as well. I could see it if bargain wasn't printed as a 1 or 2-off. It's for sure a possibility. But of course, bargain is much better than stock up.
So
in that deck,
let's go into detail about bargain because I'm currently not sure. You are allowed to take 2 cards of the top 4.
Yeah, exactly.
And you mill the rest.
Top 4.
Top 4.
And the big bonus is exactly as you say. You mill the rest of the cards into your graveyard, which fuels Murktide, which fuels a Mystic Sanctuary. It enables everything you kind of it has so much synergy with the rest of your deck, and it's instant. That's also very important.
Yeah. Are you allowed to take none of those cards?
I think up to 2, yeah.
Yeah, because it's quite key with Murktide Regent.
I think it has up to 2, yeah. 2 that.
So you can mill everything and see.
Yeah, maybe you have three instant in there and you don't need the cantrips because you have like Beanstalk.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm not super sure. Maybe you have to take 2 cards. But yeah.
But if it's a possibility, I think this is kind of the trick that you can sometimes use to make your lethal Murktides.
Yeah, can be. If that's true, but we have to verify.
Yeah, but yeah, we have now the cantrips,
Mm.
get to your value, but something has to be said now to ensure that we even go to game to turn 2 or turn 3.
Yeah.
And this is the counter and removal suit. The no-brainer
4 Force of Will.
4 Force of Will. Those are especially good in here because they trigger Beanstalk. Then we have, I think, 4 Forces.
I would say it's closer to in the range of 2 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
4, of course, you can do it if you really want to have it, but I guess you don't want to have too many copies of Forces generally. But yeah, Forces is definitely in the mix.
Then we have Abrupt Decays, maybe?
Abrupt Decay, actually don't.
Fatal Pushes.
Fatal Pushes, like the removal suit is usually a couple of Fatal Pushes, Meteor's Cut. And you can also have, for example, Shield Red's Edict as your way to remove Planeswalkers. Yeah, that's usually it. Some people play Snuff Out. I personally not super high on that card because it doesn't trigger Beanstalk because it's only 4 mana. And yeah, that's usually it for the removal set. But one big card is of course Witherbloom Command.
To
kind of
buybacks your lands.
Yeah.
Can kill 2 things from your opponent. Am I right?
You can kill a Bowmaster. You can kill usually the best target at the moment is Bowmaster because it gives -3, -1. And a big factor is actually can kill a flipped Tameo because it's kills a non-creature permanent.
Non-creature, non-land permanent with Simcity Duelist. Am I right?
Yeah. And that's actually quite important against Tameo, for example, if it's flipped.
Okay, that's sweet.
That's very sweet, yeah.
I always thought it was just artifacts, to be honest.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah, because, it can also, but this is also important in the mirror, it can kill opposing Beanstalks as well. So there are some applications for it. It often comes as a surprise, and then, this card is good.
Yeah, that's nice. So, and then we said maybe Spell Pierces in the mix. Those are kind of the
Spell Pierce. What I just now realized, there's of course different ways how to build this deck, but usually actually if you go lower to the interactive side, you actually play a couple of Dazes yourself,
which would be insane with the Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to buy back and also it's great against these tempo strategies that you can push a Beanstalk through, or you have a little bit of interaction because you usually need your mana to deploy a Thoughtseize, to deploy a Beanstalk if you want to, and then you want to have some access to free counter spells against the faster decks.
Yeah. So basically we talked about how to get to your value cards, how to stay in game for your value cards so that you can draw a lot of cards, and it's super awesome to have like 7 cards each turn in hand. But how the fuck do you win? So let's talk about win conditions. How do you usually win with the deck? Is it Urus? Is it Murktide? Is it Delver Secrets? What the heck do you play in the deck?
Probably Murktide, right?
Yeah, Murktide is the biggest because it makes the most sense. It triggers Beanstalk as well. It's the I would say the number 1 threat that usually gets played. Uro is sometimes in the mix if you want to be even bigger, which also works nicely with Bargain, by the way. It can fuel Uro escaping as well. Bowmasters is in the mix, just of course to punish opposing beanstalks, control decks, whatever exactly. But yeah, win cons actually usually Murktides, Orcish Bowmasters sometimes wins. Tameo, yeah.
Yeah. And you said endurance is nearly a must include. And I may think about the answer why. And this is because you draw a shit ton of cards and you get the your end, so you only have 60 cards in your deck. So you at least want to put in your graveyard into your deck once again to draw it again. Am I right?
That's the reason. Yeah, you need endurance in for the mirror. I think it's kind of the mirror breaker because you draw so many cards really. And yeah, with the delving of Murderous Cut of Murktide, you get rid of this fetch lands that you don't need, and then you're shuffling back with endurance the good cards, and then you draw them all over again.
And also kind of key to disrupt you here. To play your endurance, you pitch cast it, let it die first, so you put the shuffle back in trigger first. Then the die trigger, so it dies first and then gets shuffled back into your deck once again.
You can, then save your endurance for another spin as well. Yeah, true.
And so you can draw your deck 4 times or 5 or 6.
And that's also the nice reason with Bargain again. It as a card that pitches to Force, pitches to Endurance, also Force of Vigor.
It pitches to Unmask.
It pitches to Unmask if you want to. Yeah, exactly. It's a super nice fit. Just to mention it once again. Yeah.
But this deck really has a hard time closing out games in my opinion. So you only rely on 3 Murktides.
3 to 4, yeah.
3 to 4 Murktides, 0 to 3 Uros.
It's like usually 7 to 8 creatures.
Yeah, so it's really, really threat light. I don't know off the top of my head how's the mana base regarding to swamps.
You mean the basic?
Yeah, no, not the basic, but how many bayous, how many black sources do you play?
Black sources. I think it's black is like the second color of the deck. Blue is the first, and then black, and then it's green usually. Right now it's a little bit more green because of endurance and bargain. It's not a light splash. It's similar to black, a little bit less maybe. I think it's 12 to 13 black sources or something like that without Lauren revealed. So
I mean, what I'm thinking about is here maybe you could also try to not go the Mystic Sanctuary route and be the first deck to play Witch Cottage.
This is the one that buys back
or a creature on the top of your deck.
Well, yeah, of course. The issue is, of course, you're a very threat light, as you said, and therefore I think sometimes you don't get the value when you need it. Sometimes with instants and sorceries, you always have them in the graveyard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally.
Typically, you want to buy back your bargains if you can. Or Lauren reveals,
and
draw a shit ton of
these should find your threats.
Like finding the threats eventually is actually, I don't think it's ever a problem.
Okay.
It is, you have to get into a position where you are so ahead in resources that you do not need to win immediately. It's fine. You have so many counters and interaction pieces, your opponent cannot do anything. It's like then 90-95% already won. You're just looking for. It's similar if you think about that a Stompy deck that has deployed all its 8 pieces and then they just want to closing out, but they are fine if they with 2-3 turns without deploying a threat because they have locked up the game. Kind of. It's similar situation here with Beanstalk.
Yeah, and another counterpoint to Witch Cottage is against spells they usually don't get exiled. So you have exit with Mystic Sanctuary to them. But on the other hand, still the premier remove spell, even though the top decks are currently not really playing it, is Swords to Plowshares. And then Witch Cottage doesn't really get in.
I know where I get it from, but it's like with Rakshasa's Bargain, you can simply mill one of your Murktides and get it back with Cottage on top.
Yeah, I kind of think we in the world where this deck plays, the playstyle should be like to 100% ensure everything is clear.
Mm.
Then deploy your threat. So you have a lot of time to draw through them, and even then, as you already said, put them back in, draw them again. So you don't really need to have access to the additional card, especially when you're going the faster build. I said with Days Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah, with Days, it's a totally different beast. I mean, you can't pick up which card is with Days, which would be great.
And that's actually also the beauty in the right now, and I think it might be at this point, if you expect, I think the format still is a tad on the faster side still. You don't want to be full-blown control and full-blown value, actually. It should make sense to still have lower to the ground Dazes and less copies of Beans and bargain, not to, die in the face of any threat, any, and one of the weakest point is the mana base. With your hand full of bargains and beans, and you cannot do about cannot cast them, deploy them
because there's a Blood Moon on the battlefield.
Yeah. So let's start with the weaknesses. Set the mana, I think, a little bit aside, because we're talking about like ensuring to staying in the game, Dazes, early game protection.
Yeah.
As you said, the biggest counterpoint to this deck is the early to mid game, which means the highest influential points for the deck, besides having a shit ton of cantrips or selection spells that you need to be knowledgeable about the matchup to pick the right card, is also kind of keeping a mulligan.
Mm-hmm.
Because when your weakest point is turn 1, 2, 3, you need your perfect 6 or 7 to start the game with. What are your advices here, kinda? I mean, it's always matchup dependent, but
it is
general heuristics.
Like, I think at this point, this is the reason why I think this Beanstalk deck is good and playable in the format. The meta game is not super punishing if you don't have like the perfect, let's say, 6 or 7 card hand, which was the case before we had Reanimator being banned. It's okay at this time. It's not you lose the game if you don't have a great hand. I mean, it's still a blue deck. And then Ponder Keep is okay, usually. You have the on average, I'd say, 1 extra turn now that you can use to cantrip into more interaction pieces that it allows you to transition into the mid game. That's the reason why it's playable at this point, I think.
Yeah, to transition to the mid game, I feel like the most important card in this step here is to accelerate your advantages.
Mm-hmm.
And the card is in the deck's name. It's Beanstalk. Beanstalk is basically the card that ensures, okay, I was in the early game, I used a few cards. As I said, like Forces is a key card to ensure you having at least 1 or 2 more turns to live, because it usually takes a very key card from your opponent's hand that he has to redo or the cantrips to get the card back, is Beanstalk. So where is the typical turn where you want to drop the Beanstalk? Do you pull down the shield a little bit, having not access to spell piece, and just slam it on turn 2? Or do you wait to turn 4 to have like maybe a spell pierce or like Force of Will around a days or double days even? Is it turn 2 early as possible, or do you usually delay it? Or do you play the generic answer, it depends?
That's my answer. Also, this mine would be like last time when we played Philip against Uxor spells, I would not play Beanstalk on turn 2, never. I will hold up my spell pierces, I will dip even if I don't have anything, I will just leave up 2 mana because to represent something. Maybe I would do it if I have 2 copies of Force of Will in my hand that I can still cast. Okay, yeah, this may be. In this matchup, no, I would never play it. Never is maybe too hard to say, but usually not.
Depends on your free interaction.
Exactly, yeah. But against Beanstalk Mirror or like what have you?
Against Blue Black Tempo, basically the policeman, the top deck of the format.
There I would also not play because of days.
Yeah.
But other than that, if there is no days involved and I don't fear a fast combo, ideally you want to have it on turn 2. Yeah, for sure. In like a week.
Okay. So usually you try to go in as early as possible.
That's the idea basically, but of course Legacy has to say something about it just because it's Legacy. And that's why you usually don't play it on turn 2 because you have to play around something or you have to hold up your other interaction.
And play around Bowmasters.
Yeah. For example.
Okay, so yeah, we transition a little bit to the mid game, but the stepping stone in between to getting to the turn 2 Beanstalk is usually that you have 2 lands and they make the color they are supposed to be. So we're talking about the biggest weakness, I think, of the deck. It's its mana base. I think it has 1 or 2 basics, or doesn't even play basics.
2 basics, yeah. 1 or 2 basics, yeah.
Okay, an island, and then you play the swamp. Yeah, but the mana is still not in great shape. So your biggest enemies are Wasteland and Blood Moon. And to some extent, I would say Harbinger of the Tide from...
Oh, yeah.
Not the mirror, but from the Blue-Black Tempo.
For example, it still plays a card. And I'm actually not sure if Beanstalk has the ability consistently beating Blue-Black Tempo. I'm not super sure. It plays Wasteland Days, Harbinger sometimes in the sideboard.
Buckish Bowmasters.
Bowmasters is a card that is for sure good against Beanstalk. That's why you have your own Bowmasters to combat that. Mana base is, I think, the biggest weakness. If you don't get to deploy your mana, and I mean, the deck also is a little bit greedy in its deck construction because you also have Wasteland, but you kind of need this angle.
Are they really necessary? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Is the Wasteland only here because it's so great in the mirror, or is it there another reason?
In the mirror, it's not super great actually. No, it's good as like you have a few threats. I think without a Wasteland, well, first of all, of course, it's great with a Bloom command. If you rebuy it, there's a kind of an engine building. The second hand is like you don't want to randomly die to a Maze of If because you play against lands and they and you have one big threat in Murktide. You wanna push through with that card usually. You kind of need this Wasteland's angle. Dark Depth is an issue. You don't have too much answers against that. They don't care about you drawing many forces and super many cards. They don't care. They just make a 20/20 and you die. And it's not super popular at the time, but based on that, I think you need this unfortunately somehow. But it weakens the mana base, that's for sure.
And it's great that decks have weaknesses.
But
it's even greater that decks have strengths. So when we say early to mid game is kind of complicated. You have to make a good transition. You have to really try to stay alive. Then we go into the happy parts of the deck. And I kind of want you guys to envision how the battlefield looks. You have 3 beanstalks on the battlefield. With 5 cards in hand. Your opponent plays a spell, cast in response a Rakshasa Spine. You draw 3 cards. You look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You choose another 2. Then you found your Force of Will, and then you Force of Will your opponent's card. How does this feel?
I gotta be honest. Bug Beans is probably one of the very, very rare occasions where I, for myself, are intrigued play a control deck.
Oh wow, yeah.
That really doesn't happen in a lot of circumstances. Yeah. So this Bug Beans, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's also great to play against that deck because it's not like it's not like that you simply can't win against it or something. You have to be really careful about finding the right spot. It's very matches are very interesting against it.
Yeah.
So it's
super interactive, right?
Yeah.
And if you win, independent of which side you're on, if you're playing against or with Beanstalk, it feels like an earned win.
Yeah.
That you kind of
true.
step by step puzzle together and grind it together in some cases. It's very rewarding just to have it in that game, and there's not really a situation where it leads to really bad gameplay. I don't think so. I mean, Bowmasters can be bad if it's against Beanstalk sometimes, but yes.
I think it's a lot better to have Beanstalk in the format than Eldrazi.
oh, for sure. That's no question.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It provides for the meta a very, very stable deck that provides a lot of interaction, a lot of points where you as an opponent or even the player has to decide which way we are moving forward. Where do you find the lines? What's especially interesting is with bargain and all the card selection, you usually play against like 2, 3, or even 4 copies of Force of Will against your opponent. So shady stuff doesn't really work. And so it's really, really fair and trying to value out your opponent, which is usually not really the thing that you can do without Beanstalk. So guys, tell me a little bit about how to combat the deck actually. Or is it only turn 1 Wasteland, lol? Is it something else?
It's you have to overpower the early interaction. Like Daniel said, the turn 1 or turn 2 Thoughtseize are very crucial in beating turn 1 combo decks like Upsal spells or Reanimator or something. And I think we have already analyzed it to great detail that really the mid game turns 2 to 3 are probably the most crucial part, where your shields are down, where you try to keep mana open even though you don't have anything to do, just to give your opponent the illusion that they can't go off right now.
Well, it would be more desperate, but yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
The fact that it still happens is telling enough, in my opinion. So
sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, so this is probably the weak point. So if you want to combat it, to combat the deck, it's probably the best if you're a combo deck to lead on with a Thoughtseize, take their Thoughtseize, and then maybe try to win through their forces.
Yeah, I can tell a little bit of a story. Back in the day, when BUG Beanstalk or 4-color Beanstalk was still a deck, where it was named 4-color Control. It was Eternal Weekends 2023. They're tested a lot, and usually the gameplay really evolves around turn 4. Since I played Painter there, I had something for turn 1 or turn 2. My opponent had to use a Swords to Plowshares, for example, in this case, a Fatal Push against it. Then you play another thing. Your opponent either has to interact with it with something on the board or force it. Maybe you drop the Beanstalk, then definitely the force in there. And then on turn 3, 4, or 5, your opponent had to recoup something to get access to another counter magic. And this was the point to strike. So my gameplay back in the day were usually to play around in 4-color. I think only played 1 basic, to play a few threats before dropping your big thing. Back in the day, it was usually a turn to Urza Saga to play around that. When Urza Saga got to the third chapter, or sometime even my opponent thought he was safe because Urza Saga was on 2, I purposefully destroyed my own Urza Saga to drop in the Blood Moon because it's so important in this matchup.
Yeah, that's true.
So it really evolves how you play your deck against the weaknesses of your opponent's deck. So it's really important to focus on the window where to strike and not really where your opponent's best part is to combat that. Because, for example, with Painter, when my opponent has 1 Beanstalk in there, I'm living on the threat. Sometimes I can get there, but against 2, if he gets another 2 turns, it's game over.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
So you have to play against your opponent's weaknesses, even though they try to cover it up in game 2 and game 3, rather to play against their strengths.
Yeah.
It's an awesome deck, to be honest.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try it out. For sure. I mean, I just have to get those pesky little beanstalks. Everything else. And Tamius. Ah, fuck, I forgot about this card.
But you don't have to play them. I think they're nice. 1 or 2 copies.
Do you know? Too many for I like it.
But there are versions that just play Uro and don't have any Tamius.
But do you know why Tamius is great? Because it draws cards.
I just cards, yeah.
I don't get it.
The deck only revolves around drawing cards.
I get it.
Yeah,
I think
it doesn't get better.
No, not really. That was our analyzing of the BUG Beanstalk.
Yeah. See you in the next episode.